The street lamp flickered once, then held steady against the dark. Beneath it, half buried in windswept snow, something small and still caught the edge of his headlights as he turned onto his street. He slowed the truck. At first, he thought it was trash, a discarded scarf, maybe, or a frozen bundle of leaves. But then the wind shifted, and he saw the curve of a spine, the shallow rise and fall of breath. He killed the engine and stepped out into the cold. The wind bit through his jacket immediately, sharp enough to make his eyes water. He crouched low, snow soaking through his jeans at the knees, and reached out slowly. The shape didn't move. Up close, he could see fur, matted, ice-crusted, and far too small to be out here alone. A kitten, he thought. Someone's pet, lost or abandoned in the worst cold snap the county had seen in years. But when he brushed the snow away from its face, he stopped. The markings were wrong. The ears were wrong, tufted at the tips. The coat wasn't the soft tabby pattern of a house cat. It was spotted, wild, built for something else entirely. The paws were oversized, the claws retracted, but visible. And the eyes, half open and glazed, held a flicker of something that didn't belong in a cardboard box by a dumpster. This wasn't a kitten. This was a bobcat. He didn't think. He shrugged off his coat, wrapped the tiny body as gently as he could, and ran back to the truck. The heater roared to life as he cradled the bundle against his chest, one hand steadying its head. It was so cold it didn't even flinch. Its breathing was shallow, uneven. He could feel its heartbeat, faint, stuttering, like something winding down. He drove faster than he should have. Inside, the house was warm and quiet. He laid the bobcat on the kitchen table under the overhead light and stood there for a moment, hands shaking, trying to remember everything he'd ever learned about hypothermia. Heating pads, warm towels, slow thawing, never fast, never direct heat. He moved quickly, filling the sink with lukewarm water, testing it with his elbow, the way you would for a baby. He grabbed towels from the linen closet, the good ones his sister had given him last Christmas, and spread them across the counter. The bobcat didn't resist when he lifted it. It was limp, weightless, its body barely warmer than the snow it had been lying in. He lowered it into the water slowly, supporting its head above the surface, and watched as the ice in its fur began to melt. Tiny clouds of dirt and debris swirled away. Its eyes stayed closed. "Come on," he whispered. "Come on." He didn't know why he was talking to it. It couldn't hear him. Maybe it was already too far gone. But he kept his voice low and steady anyway, the way you might talk to a frightened dog, and kept the water moving gently over its limbs. After 10 minutes, the bobcat's chest rose a little deeper. After 20, its paw twitched. He dried it carefully, patting down the fur with a clean towel, and wrapped it in a fleece blanket he'd warmed in the dryer. Then he carried it to the couch, set up a heating pad on low, and arranged the bundle so the kitten, because that's what it still was, wild or not, could breathe easily. He sat back on his heels and stared at it. This was insane. He didn't know the first thing about wild animals. He didn't have a license, didn't have the resources, didn't even know if what he was doing was legal. The smart thing, the responsible thing, would be to call a wildlife rescue center in the morning. Let the professionals handle it. One night, he told himself. Just one night, long enough to stabilize it, long enough to make sure it didn't die alone in the cold. He rubbed his face with both hands and stood up. That's when he heard the soft pad of footsteps in the hallway. Milo appeared in the doorway, ears forward, tail low. He was a grey tabby, 9 years old, with a white bib and skeptical green eyes that had seen plenty of strange things in his time. Vacuum cleaners, delivery men, the neighbor's dog. But he'd never seen this. He stopped at the edge of the living room, nose twitching, body tense. The man watched, ready to scoop the bobcat up if Milo hissed or lunged. Cats were territorial. Cats didn't like surprises. And this wasn't just a surprise. This was a wild predator, small as it was, lying in the middle of Milo's territory. But Milo didn't hiss. He crept forward, low to the ground, each step deliberate. His whiskers swept forward. He sniffed the air once, twice, and then, Slowly, impossibly, he approached the bundle on the couch. The man held his breath. Milo sniffed the bobcat's head. His ears swiveled back, then forward again. The bobcat didn't stir, and then, without warning, Milo leaned in and began to groom. His tongue moved over the bobcat's frozen ears in slow, careful strokes. He licked the top of its head, down the bridge of its nose, across the tufted tips of its ears, the same way he might groom a kitten of his own, the same way a mother would. The man stared, heart hammering in his chest, unable to move. Milo didn't stop. He settled down beside the bobcat, curling his body around it, tucking his paws beneath his chest. His purr started low and deep, a sound the man hadn't heard in months, not since the old dog had passed. Milo pressed his chin against the bobcat's shoulder and closed his eyes. The bobcat's breathing steadied. The man sank onto the edge of the couch, hands limp in his lap, and watched the two of them in the lamplight. The wild and the domestic, the predator and the house cat. It didn't make sense. Milo should have been terrified. He should have fled, hissed, hidden under the bed the way he did during thunderstorms. But instead, he stayed. He groomed, he warmed, he protected. The man leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and let out a long, shaky breath. Outside, the wind howled against the windows. Inside, the bobcat's tiny ribcage rose and fell beneath Milo's watchful body. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a question formed, quiet, persistent, impossible to ignore. Why would a house cat adopt a wild predator that should have terrified him? He didn't have an answer. But as he sat there in the warm glow of the lamp, watching Milo's eyes blink slowly closed, watching the bobcat's paw twitch in something that might have been sleep, he realized he didn't need one yet. Not tonight. Morning light filtered through the blinds in soft golden bars. The man woke on the couch, neck stiff, blanket twisted around his legs. For a moment, he couldn't remember why he'd slept there. Then he heard it, a low, steady purr. He sat up carefully. Milo was still curled around the bobcat, his body wrapped protectively over its back. But the bobcat had changed. Its chest rose and fell with stronger rhythm now. Its paws twitched, flexing open and closed as if testing the air, and its eyes, still closed, moved beneath the lids in something that looked like dreaming. The man exhaled slowly. It had made it through the night. He stood, stretched, and walked to the kitchen to start coffee. Behind him, he heard a soft rustling. When he turned back, the bobcat's eyes were open, pale gold, wide, and locked on him with an intensity that stopped him mid-step. Wild eyes, wary, calculating. But Milo only blinked slowly and began grooming again, licking the top of the bobcat's head in long, patient strokes. The wild eyes softened. The bobcat let out a sound, half mew, half chirp, and leaned into Milo's warmth. By the third day, the man had stopped pretending this was temporary. Milo had taken over completely. He brought toys to the bobcat's bed, a crinkled ball, a catnip mouse, a twist tie he'd stolen from the counter. When the bobcat cried, Milo answered immediately, trotting over with a low trill that seemed to say, "I'm here, you're safe." And when the bobcat finally tried to stand on shaky legs, Milo walked beside it, step for step, nudging it gently back toward the blanket. When it stumbled, the man tried separating them once, just to be cautious. He set up a crate in the spare room, lined it with soft bedding, and gently placed the bobcat inside. Milo appeared in the doorway within seconds. He sat outside the crate and cried, not a plaintive meow, but a deep, guttural wail that echoed through the house. When the man didn't open the door, Milo began pawing at the latch, claws scraping metal, eyes fixed on the bobcat inside. The man gave up after 10 minutes. He opened the crate. Milo slipped inside immediately, curled around the bobcat, and went silent. A week later, the bobcat was eating solid food, shredded chicken, small pieces of turkey, things the man researched late at night on his phone. It chewed with surprising focus, ears swiveling at every sound, and when it was done, it climbed curtains, bookshelves, the back of the couch.
Its movements were precise, instinctive, nothing like the clumsy tumbles of a house cat. It stalked dust motes in the sunlight, pouncing with a speed that made the man catch his breath. And yet, when Milo approached, the bobcat softened, its head bumped, it slow blinked, it play wrestled, careful and gentle, as if it understood the difference between wild and home. The man sat at the kitchen table one evening, phone in hand, staring at the number for the Wildlife Rescue Center. Just one night, he'd told himself. But Milo was asleep on the couch, the bobcat tucked against his belly, both of them breathing in sync. He put the phone down. Not yet.
3 weeks in, the bobcat had doubled in size. Its legs lengthened overnight. It seemed lean and muscled, built for speed. Its paws, once oversized and clumsy, now moved with eerie precision. When it played with Milo, the games grew rougher. It pounced harder, held on longer. Milo never retreated, never hissed. But the man noticed the way his old cat had to work now to keep up. One morning, the bobcat leapt from the floor to the top of the refrigerator in a single bound. The man stood there, coffee mug halfway to his lips, staring up at those golden eyes watching him from above. This couldn't continue. He made the call on a Tuesday afternoon. The woman at the Wildlife Rescue Center was kind, professional. She asked questions: age, weight, behavior. She listened as he explained how he'd found it, how Milo had bonded with it, how healthy it seemed now. There was a pause on the line. Then she said the words he'd been dreading. It sounds like he's ready. Ready to be transitioned. Ready to learn how to hunt, how to survive, how to be wild again. They could take him within the week, if the man was willing to bring him in. He said he'd call back. That night, he couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch in the dark, watching the woods beyond his yard. Inside, through the window, he could see Milo and the bobcat curled together on the couch. Milo's head rested on the bobcat's shoulder. The bobcat's tail draped over Milo's back. How do you explain to a cat that the thing he loves has to leave? He built the enclosure himself over the next 2 weeks. A large, secure space in the backyard, with platforms, branches, and room to climb. He told himself it was a transition, a way to let the bobcat test its instincts while still being close. The bobcat explored it immediately. It scaled the tallest post, crouched on the highest platform, and watched the trees with ears pricked forward. It stalked insects through the grass, pounced on shadows, tested every corner with its nose. It was thriving, but every evening, without fail, it pressed itself against the glass door that led back inside. Its eyes tracked Milo through the window, and Milo sat on the other side, paw against the glass, crying softly. The man stood between them, hand on the doorknob, and felt his chest tighten. The bobcat was strong now, healthy, wild, everything the rescue center said it needed to be. But letting it go meant breaking the only bond Milo had formed since the old dog died. He looked down at Milo, then out at the bobcat, and he didn't know what the right answer was anymore. Spring arrived with soft rain and budding trees. The bobcat was nearly full grown now, sleek, powerful, every inch of him built for the wild. The rescue center had been patient, but the message was clear. It was time. The man and Milo walked the enclosure one last time. The bobcat met them at the gate, pressing his head against the man's hand, then Milo's face. Milo groomed him once more, ears, forehead, the bridge of his nose, the way he had that very first night. Then the wildlife staff arrived. The bobcat looked back once as they guided him toward the forest edge. His eyes found Milo, held there. Then he turned and disappeared into the trees. The house felt too quiet. Milo wandered the rooms for days, crying softly. He sat by the glass door for hours, staring out at the empty enclosure. He stopped eating, stopped playing. The man found him one night curled in the bobcat's old blanket, kneading it with his paws, eyes half closed. The man sat beside him on the floor, hand resting on Milo's back. "I know," he whispered. "I miss him too." 3 weeks passed. The man checked the trail camera he'd mounted near the tree line, something he did out of habit now, not hope. He scrolled through images of deer, raccoons, the occasional fox. Then he stopped. There, at the edge of the frame, stood the bobcat, bigger now, fuller. His coat gleamed in the infrared glow. He was staring directly at the house, ears forward, body still. The man's breath caught. He clicked to the next image. The bobcat was closer, and in the audio file attached to the frame, he heard it. 2 soft meows, clear and unmistakable. From inside the house, Milo's cry echoed faintly in the background of the recording. The bobcat had answered. The man stood, heart pounding, and walked to the door. Milo was already there, pacing, tail low. The man opened it slowly. The bobcat stood at the edge of the yard, just beyond the glow of the porch light. He didn't approach fully, didn't come inside, but he stepped close enough. Milo rushed forward, and the 2 of them touched noses, just once. The bobcat rumbled low in his chest, not a growl, but something softer, a greeting, a promise. Then he turned and slipped back into the trees. Milo stood on the porch for a long time, watching the place where the bobcat had disappeared. Then he walked back inside, climbed onto the couch, and curled up in his usual spot. The man closed the door quietly. Outside, the forest held its secrets. Inside, the house felt whole again. He'd stayed only one night, but he'd left a bond that would last a lifetime.